all alone, and that also at his residence. I don't think any of us who's on the show now has ever done that or would ever do that. Even if you are the most honest person in the world, a kind of lingering suspicion would be there that there is something more than what meets the eye.
Absolutely.
Right or wrong, I'm not...
Can I therefore ask you this?
So
to be asked by the Supreme Court to be asked by the Supreme Court to recuse himself when he is the head of the CBI, is that not a slap in his face?
Well, I suppose mistakes can be made by each individual. I mean, we are not all foolproof. Mr. Ramarao was my predecessor. He knows and I know how we face the Supreme Court.
Okay.
But nobody ever said why you did this thing or so. So, but the fact remains here that these are the common precautions. We can always learn. But
absolutely. I'll come to the learning in a moment's time. I want to stick to what the Supreme Court has said. Mr. Ramarao, Ranjit Sinha, the CBI director, insists that no aspersions have been cast on his name or his reputation.
What else is there? But what else is there?
Yeah, but I'm putting that to Mr. Ramarao. I'm putting that question to Mr. Ramarao. But Mr. Ramarao, is that in fact true? Because I want to quote to you what the Supreme Court bench said yesterday. To protect the fair name of the CBI and to protect the reputation of the CBI director, we are not giving elaborate reasons. And then they added, we reiterate that we are not giving elaborate reasons as the CBI has its own reputation and we don't intend to tarnish it. Doesn't that clearly suggest, Mr. Ramarao, that in fact, had they given reasons, it would have damaged Mr. Sinha's reputation? Therefore, it's not that aspersions weren't cast, they just weren't made public.
Yes. As I understand the order, they have separated the director from the organization in saying clearly that the organization has a good reputation, and then asking him to recuse himself from further investigation in the case on hand. It does reflect suspicion, I think a suspicion in the minds of the people who listen to that, who have read it, and also the judges perhaps meant it.
Absolutely. In fact, Mr. Karthikeyan, before the Supreme Court told Mr. Sinha to recuse himself, they had a conversation with Mr. Vikas Singh, Mr. Sinha's lawyer. This is what the Supreme Court said to Mr. Singh. Think how you can solve the problem. And in reply, Mr. Singh said, I cannot back out today, otherwise I will suffer personally. I can't vindicate the organization through myself. Don't you get the impression that the Supreme Court was hoping that Mr. Sinha, approached through his lawyer, would voluntarily recuse himself, but when the lawyer refused to do so, they had to order Mr. Sinha to recuse himself. Do you get that clear impression?
Well, that was the last opportunity given to him to retrieve his position. But now, after the final words of comments from the Supreme Court, his credibility is badly tarnished. It may be in one case, an important case, but even then, you know, if there is a lack of trust expressed by the highest court in the land, it is not just in one hearing, after so many hearings, and we have to respect that. And as the court itself has said, to protect the integrity image of the organization, Mr. Sinha will be very well advised to honorably dissociate himself from the organization by going on leave or taking some such thing. There is no doubt about it. There cannot be more severe comment from the highest court in the land. It has never happened in the history of the CBI.
Let me then ask you the question a moment ago I asked to Mr. Vijay Ramarao. Although Mr. Sinha insists no aspersions have been cast on his name, when the Supreme Court says that the only reason they are not giving elaborate reasons is because they want to protect the institution, does that not clearly suggest that the Supreme Court does have aspersions? They simply didn't make them public. Would you accept that, Mr. Karthikeyan?
Oh, it is. You know, in fact, it's very I would say generous of the Supreme Court, trying to protect the image of the organization, because that is the only premier investigative agency available in the whole country. And it has done a great job all the time. Maybe some aberrations here and there, but overall it's a very tough job. When matters come to CBI for investigation, they are very sensitive cases. It's very difficult. But then they have acquitted themselves very well all these years. And it's an opportunity to protect the image of the CBI, integrity of the CBI, credibility of the CBI, by the officer, in fact, withdrawing himself from the scene.
Now, Mr. Raghavan, it's not just the Supreme Court that is embarrassed with Mr. Sinha. Over the claim that DIG Santosh Rastogi was a mole, the CBI's counsel, K.K. Venugopal, had this to say, and I'm quoting him: "The mole comment by the CBI director is not justified. If there is any evidence to back the mole allegation, let the CBI director produce it in court, or else let him withdraw that charge." Now, when the CBI's own counsel speaks in these terms about the CBI director, it clearly suggests that the institution is also distancing itself from its director. That's doubly embarrassing for Mr. Sinha, isn't it?
Absolutely. There are so many things went wrong yesterday and the days preceding that, when the case was heard to the Supreme Court. I don't think we have enough time to go through all of them. The fact that the recent instances, whatever happened in the court, clearly indicate the chasm between the prosecutors and the CBI, especially represented by the director. The director was singing in one voice, the prosecutors in another. And the officers working for Sinha obviously were not very happy the way he was chairing the organization. And the fact that a junior officer, possibly was a staff officer working under Sinha, was named as a mole, although they denied that he was ever named, but my own information indicates that this particular officer was indeed named, probably in an affidavit before the Supreme Court. My own inquiries revealed that this officer, so named as a mole, enjoys an excellent reputation. I understand he's a sterling character, and if this is going to happen, it will demoralize the entire CBI. I still maintain, as Karthikeyan also said, the court yesterday drew a clear distinction between the director and the organization. And the court, it's admirable that the court gave a judicious order and not a mere judicious order. They didn't want the reputation to be besmirched, and that is why the message was very clear to Ranjit Sinha that he had to withdraw. And possibly lots of people expect him to put in his papers and leave, because he's got only a fortnight to go. But he is very brazen about it, and this causes me a lot of anguish to people like us, probably to the other three who are in the panel, that the situation has come to such a pass.
Before I move on, the conclusion we are reaching at this point, Mr. Raghavan, is the following. I'll come to you in a moment, Mr. Jugendra. I'll come to you in a moment. Just hold on, I'll come to you in a moment. Before I move on, Mr. Raghavan, the conclusion we are reaching is the following: that Mr. Sinha has received 2 votes of clear no confidence, one from the Supreme Court bench and another from his own colleagues, delivered through the CBI's counsel, K.K. Venugopal. Both sides have expressed no confidence in him.
Are you asking me to respond?
I am indeed. I'm asking you if you agree with that conclusion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, as I said, there's a clear chasm between the prosecutors and the director. And the prosecutor, yes, there have been a few instances in the past when the prosecutors were speaking in one language or making one argument, the organization didn't agree. But it is a case where the director was on the one side and the rest of the organization plus the prosecutors were on the other. It's a comical situation, and I'm sure the Supreme Court is not amused. That is why they passed this order yesterday. And the message is very clear that Sinha should put in his papers and leave. I don't know why he's hanging on to the job. Because I think there is a consensus that the organization has suffered badly under his leadership. And so this is where we are.
Now, in fact, Mr. Jugendra Singh, I want to pursue with you a little further the points made by the Supreme Court regarding the so-called alleged mole, who in fact is not a mole. We're talking in fact about Santosh Rastogi. This is what the Supreme Court said. According to file notings before us, this man Rastogi was telling you, i.e. telling Sinha, again and again that this is not the way to proceed with the prosecution. You didn't like him. It appears to us that because you were not prepared to listen to a supervising officer, you removed him to keep a clear path to do what you wanted. That is a real slap in the face now, is it not? Can you accept it, Mr. Joginder Singh?
No, I will not accept it. Even I will justify whoever exposed it. After all, your conduct should be such that you should not be able to explain only at that time, but also later on, even if it costs you your job. CBI director has 2 years protection after I was transferred in Fodder scam case. All these people got a benefit of extra 2 years of service here. So there is no need for anything else here. If you are hankering for a job after that, it is different.
Yeah, but
see the people who got the job, but what is happening
just
to them?
Mr. Joginder Singh, are you and I talking at cross purposes? Because it seems to me you're agreeing with the Supreme Court's comments, and I was not disagreeing with the Supreme Court. I was asking whether the Supreme Court's comments amount to a slap in the face.
I think Supreme Court has been too lenient that way. They have been good enough to, spare a gentleman. Only 5 working days are left for this gentleman. I totally agree with what you said here. He should have himself proceeded on leave and say, look, I can't work now for reason A, B, C, D or so. Just 5 working days, because every week is 5 days here.
Okay.
Then first and second he goes home. That's all. Just for 5 days.
Mr. Ramarao, let me bring you in. I take your point, Mr. Joginder Singh. You're saying it wasn't strict enough. The Supreme Court, instead of giving him 1 slap in the face, should have given him 2 or 3. That's a very interesting point. Mr. Ramarao, given what's happened, given that the Supreme Court has expressed no confidence in the CBI director, given that separately, through their counsel, the CBI
individual,
itself...
not director, individual.
Well, that is the director, by the way, sir. The individual is the director. Mr. Ramarao, let's not quarrel, Mr. Joginder Singh, over this point. I assure you, when I say director, I mean the individual. Mr. Ramarao, what do you think Mr. Sinha should do? Should he resign? At the very least, should he go on leave pending his retirement on the 2nd? At the moment, he's done nothing. He's still sitting in office.
I thought he said that he would abide by the orders of the Supreme Court.
What, he's abided by the orders of the Supreme Court in the sense that he's recused himself?
Which means...
I'm asking you further, should he resign or at least go on leave?
No, he has declared his intention to recluse himself as ordered by the Supreme Court. That's what he announced.
Yes, but I'm asking you a further question, Mr. Rao. Should he resign? After all, he is the director of an institution. The longer he stays, the more he runs the danger of damaging the institution's reputation. Should he therefore resign in these circumstances?
More stories.
Mr. Rao.
In the light of the Supreme Court's clear direction to him, they were direction to him that he should recluse himself from this investigation. I think anyone in his place would have no option, and it would be appropriate to quit and say goodbye, and perhaps pursue and try to tell the court that these remarks are not justified, and maybe he can vindicate his position, but first he should quit.
That's very clear. First he should quit. Let me put it like this, Mr. Karthikeyan. They say Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. That is clearly the logic that leads to Mr. Sinha resigning. On the other hand, Mr. Sinha just has 12 days left, out of which actually there are only 5 working days.
5 working
As Mr. Joginder Singh points out, there are only 5 working days. Some people say, well, if he's only got 5 days left, why does he need to resign? Which way do you see things, Mr. Karthikeyan?
See, though legally he is not bound to resign, but morally he has no justification to continue in office. He should either resign or proceed on leave immediately. That is the only contribution he can make to the credibility of the CBI. at the present situation. He can still do some good to the organization by quitting.
Let me put it like this, Mr. Raghavan. At this moment in time, Mr. Sinha shows no inclination of quitting or going on leave. He's sitting in his office all day today, conducting his job. The longer he stays, the more the CBI falls into the risk of getting damaged itself. Now, that's an institution that all four of you have been head of. You have an emotional loyalty to, you have a duty to have to, in fact, defend its reputation. Do you think the time has come for Mr. Sinha's predecessors to quietly meet him as a delegation and say to him, Mr. Sinha, in the bigger interest of this organization that we all serve and love, leave immediately? Do you think you should go quietly and meet him as a group and advise him to leave?
I don't think we have to go and meet him. I think our message is very clear. I think the whole of yesterday I was on TV and I mentioned this. I don't think, I mean, he must be privy to all that we have said. I think all the others also. We have been very candid and open about it, that his position had become untenable and that he had to necessarily leave. I don't think he needs a counsel. When the way he has conducted himself, it shows that he is intransigent. He would like to hang on. I don't know for what reason he is hanging on. I don't know what he is going to prove. My case is, my stand is, the moment he leaves from outside, he can defend himself much better. He has taken a high moral position, a ground, that he had been done in by certain others who were in a conspiracy to malign him. So I think he will be able to defend himself better by quitting, and from outside, he will have no inhibitions at all in saying whatever he wants. But as director, his options are limited, and he can only say a few things and not many.
Mr.
So in his own interest, he can go out and then speak candidly as to why he feels he had been done in by certain elements opposed to him.
Mr. Karthikeyan, according to press reports, which I have no reason to
director, that's it.
I'll come to you in a moment, Mr. Jugender Singh. Mr. Karthikeyan, according to press reports, which I have absolutely no reason to disbelieve, the government is considering two possibilities. Firstly, of terminating, i.e. sacking him, and secondly, of even bringing some form of legal action against him. Would either of those be advisable, or do you think that that might damage the institution and not just be an act against the present director?
I do hope Mr. Sinha doesn't allow such a situation to develop. It will be good for him to live on his own, and every day he is in office, every order he passes, administratively or even legally, will be questioned tomorrow by the parties concerned, officers concerned. It is going to create a lot of problems for the pending cases on which he may pass orders. Every day he is entitled to do it. You should offer in all grace to leave immediately, either go on, offer his resignation or proceed on leave immediately, so that the organization is not embarrassed further. As far as the government action is concerned, I think they have to contemplate quite a lot, because it's not a easy situation, because the 2-10-year tenure is given. Whether they can do one of their own, they have to consult the Attorney General, they may have to go back to the court. I think it's a totally avoidable agony to him and to the organization, and to the embarrassment of the government also. I think, about our advising him going in a delegation, after all, in public we are making our statements. We are not his enemies. We have been supporting him whenever we can. But it's in the overall interest of the organization we are suggesting to him, and in his own interest also, because why does he want to face these accusations again and again every day? It's not going to end till he leaves. So he should, I think he may take a proper decision by tonight or tomorrow morning, willing to go on leave or offering his resignation to the government. That is the best thing that he can do in the situation.
Mr. Jugender Singh, a quick last question. How much damage has this Ranjit Sinha episode, all the details that have come out in the press, all the adverse publicity, how much damage has it done to the CBI?
I think he has done a great service also to CBI by showing how a director should not behave, whatever be his own inclination. You have to strengthen your argument, both legally and orally, to convince others who are not convinced as to why what he is saying is better, and he should put it in writing, why he is saying so. The very fact that he met some accused, as many as 100 times in 3 months or so, itself doesn't speak well of anybody. Now it is exactly, I am very sorry to quote an analogy, even I have found retired judges, chief justices not meeting anybody for any cases here. Of course they practice, but not in this kind of a cases here. I think when I was there, my batchmate Raman was there. Some minister called me and he wanted to see me. I told the PM I would not go and see him. He is serving minister. When I asked the cabinet secretary, he said, I can go, but not you.
I take your point, Mr. Joginder Singh. Those were the high standards that, in fact, were not lived up to by Mr. Sinha. But I want to put that same question for a somewhat clearer answer to Mr. Vijay Ramarao. Mr. Vijay Ramarao, how much damage has the whole Sinha episode done to the CBI?
The court said that they were trying to save the reputation of the CBI, and they have asked Mr. Sinha to recuse himself from the investigation, and they didn't want to pass an order. From that it is clear, while the Supreme Court reposed confidence in the capacity of the organization based on many good things the CBI has done earlier. We have all dealt with many cases.
But has damage been done to the CBI? So we're running out of time. Has damage been done to the CBI by this incident and this episode that's lasted for 3 months in the front pages of the papers almost every day?
The order of the Supreme Court asking him to recuse himself from investigation is certainly a damage to the organization also.
It is a certain damage to the organization. Very quickly, Mr. Raghavan, has damage been done to the institution you once headed?
Absolutely enormous damage has been done. My own feeling is that every future director will be a suspect unless he vindicates himself convincingly before the court. So the court will take some time to trust future directors.
And I'm going to put the same question to you very quickly, Mr. Karthikeyan. How much damage has been done to the CBI, an institution you headed and once loved?
At least it has done great damage to the morale of the organization. Officers feel terribly embarrassed. Certain damage is done in public eye, but fortunately the Supreme Court has said indirectly that they have faith in the organization, not in one man.
All right. Clearly then it's time.
The way is that they should be careful about choosing the director. Anyone lobbying should be disqualified for any post.
Absolutely. We've run out of time, gentlemen. I'm really grateful that all of you accept this. It's the first time that four previous directors of the CBI have come together to answer one issue. And that's clearly because they care about the institution. And the clear message they're sending out is that it's time for Ranjit Sinha to go, and go quickly and hopefully go quietly. I wonder if Mr. Sinha is listening. There we end this particular episode. If you have been, thanks for watching. Have a terrific weekend and see you on Monday.